dropped frames. Oh Jesus, looks bad. See it. Your audience will. Oh Jesus, we're live. I guess that's how it operates now. All right. Well, let's see. Well, I didn't even get a chance to pick when the fucking. Well, like the more that I worry about it, the worse it'll get. See, I should probably put on some music to get us started here. There's supposed to be a whole system in place that allows me to that that I can press play when I'm ready to get started, but I don't. It's not. It immediately breaks. Here's some music that we would start the show off with, that I didn't start because goodness. Go ahead and slowly get that music down there, and we'll start the show in earnest. Well, what exactly are we looking at here, Jim? Let me go ahead and let me break it down for you. This is more or less a stream of consciousness kind of deal, where I'm just gonna kind of talk about some random things, get them out of my head, sort that autism out. No. After after burying everything else. But no, like I said, I don't expect much from tonight. Like I said, I'm just putting my shoes back on, so to speak. We haven't even begun to start walking anywhere yet. So I guess let's go ahead and get to the first topic that's on my list of shit, which is the absolute state of this channel. Which is to say, it's dead. And it's not dead because of some audience non-participation. There was quite a few views, more views than I expected it to ever get. The reason the channel is dead is because I abandoned it. I left it for dead. It's been dead for some time now. So that's pretty much how what happened. But no, I don't have any cohort to banter with, so it's just me and the sound of my own pristine voice. But no, like I said, this is just a little test run, a little bit of having fun, a little bit of shit posting on YouTube's at an hour that no one will know about that I'm streaming. I hope. We'll see. But like I said, don't feel bad about this channel being, like I said, in a shitty state, because it's entirely my fault. It's my fault for just abandoning it. But like I said, this is just something I would play around with, something to have a little bit of fun with, something to maybe have some ideas kind of bounce around with. But like I said, that's the absolute state of things with this channel. Like that's about all there is to cover with that. But no, what do I want to talk about though? Absolutely nothing. I want to talk about our centaur waifus. That's right. We're gonna talk about. Let me go ahead and get our slideshow up. There we go. There, get our little welcome back moth lady. She's happy to see us. see if we can transition to the next slide, or if it'll not let me. There we go. There we go. Horse pussy. Horse pussy. The absolute state. Now horse pussy. But what are we talking about when we say horse pussy? What we're talking about is when you look at a centaur, you look at the half human, half horse aspect. The top part being the human, the bottom part being the horse. And I'll be honest, like I said, I'm not what I would not consider myself an equestrian person. And when I say equestrian, I'm not referring to, My Little Pony shit. When I say equestrian, I'm talking about people who have a love for horses, a love for training them, riding them, all things horses. And I would imagine an equestrian type person would definitely be more inclined to prefer to preclude themselves to the centaur waifu, and with good reason. It's 50% horse, relatively speaking. Although, would you say that the ratio of horse to woman would be 50% horse? Because if you look at a centaur, you're looking at the front legs and the back legs of a horse, and a good portion of what I would consider to be like its upper shoulders. Like the only part of the horse that you're missing really with a centaur, excluding the human part, is like the head and the neck. So looking at it in that perspective, like it's almost, I would say, like 90% horse and then 50% human on top, which gives you a bizarre percentile of 140% human horse hybrid. But that's just splitting hairs, horse hairs. But no, what I also want to touch on when we talk about the centaur waifus is their lack of, I would say, their absence, more likely, from popular media. And when I refer to popular media, I'm particularly poking at video games. I've seen them crop up here and there in a few movies as of late. Trying to think of a movie off the top of my head, the closest I could come to would be like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, maybe, and maybe a few others like since then. But they're not getting that much play, and especially in the video game realm, you don't really see that many centaurs. I don't think, at least not as like waifu material, or not as companions. Often you'll see them as adversaries. I know you see a lot of that in World of Warcraft, I believe, and a couple other games as well. But as far as like what I would like to see from a centaur, mind you, from a centaur monster girl in a video game, would be like something akin to, would be like a partner or a like an assistant to help you in battle. Almost think like Dragon's Dogma, where you have a partner who you can teach things to, perhaps, or set up like a combat style they would adhere to. That's what I want from my centaur. Like a centaur that could, in theory, like ride me into battle with a bow in tow and like shooting stuff, and I could hop off her, engage in like a fight, while she's running around shooting stuff with her bow and arrow. That seems like it'd be the creme de la creme right there. You could train her to do magic, or even, mind you, you can have her be able to like stomp on foes and whatnot. And what I'm talking about is like it would not be necessarily a pet per se, in terms of how she behaved. Definitely think Dragon's Dogma in terms of establishing a relationship with these characters, or the character I should say, where you would like the more that you played a certain way with that centaur lady, like the more that she would adopt like certain aspects of your playstyle. So if you were like a mostly ranged person, like she would do like tanking stuff and tank for you. Whereas if you wanted to be a tank person, she could be in the back shooting arrows or casting spells or some shit. It would be very easy to program, I think. Like that's just one concept, an idea I had floating in my head. I have no reciprocation for it. And like, why am I bitching about centaurs? Because like when I think of centaurs, like the one series that really had like a centaur that stood out for me would be the Shining Force series, or I think it's Resurrection of the Dark Dragon. It doesn't matter if it's an older title. I don't quite remember the name. I don't believe, but what you need to know is a turn-based strategy with a number of characters, very interesting characters, mind you. One of which, of course, was the centaur, and you saw centaurs a little more throughout that series, but not too often, I don't think. Like they appeared as side characters, but you didn't typically get to play as a centaur or play with a centaur in the later games. When I'm of course mentioning it was like a spin-off series of the Shining Forces. You have Shining Soul, Shining Force Neo, and a bunch of other, like I said, derivative titles from the original Shining Force. But like I said, that's just my thoughts on the video game side. On the anime side, we're getting pretty decent exchanges. I think you see a lot of with Mon Musu, you have of course Centauria, how's that her name goes. And I believe there's a couple other animes that have not centaurs but horse girls. I don't recall the name of the series either, but at least they're touching on the horse memes. There was another series as well that starred centaurs, but also a number of other monster girls. It was a bit more. It wasn't as over the top fan servicey as Mon Musu, but it definitely tickled my fancy in terms of the cute factor and whatnot. So on the anime front, we're getting, like I said, a fairly good dose, but on the video game side, I feel we're definitely lacking. If I were to make a video game, if I had the talent and the tools, I would definitely have the centaur waifu, Dragon's Dogma. have ride into battle on your waifu, dismount, and then engage in combat. But like I said, that's my autism spurred on centaur waifus. Let me go to the next part here. We got let me go. If I can, there we go. The mantis ladies, or more specifically, it doesn't necessarily be a mantis lady. What I'm talking about are insect waifus, and insect waifus don't get that much play either. What we're looking at here, a pretty good series. It has to do with this dude who gets kidnapped, and he, like, this other insect fellow is like trying to like give him off as a prize to this insect lady, and she's like, I don't want your shit, my dude, get the fuck out of here. And instead of eating the guy that the other insect dude brought, she takes him in, and basically her whole attitude is, instead of eating you, you're going to be my husbando. Typical doujin fare, and nothing really groundbreaking here. But more importantly, it's I like this very interesting take on the monster girls, particularly for insects. And so there's a lot of stories that necessarily like delve into insect waifus, but I'll go ahead and knock her off the screen real quick. Oop, there we go. But when you touch on topics of vor, you stumble into what I would say is like really weird fandoms, and vor doesn't really do much for me. It is oops, as I over maximize the screen there. Vor does not do much for me. It's a weird fetish for weird people, but of course I have my own little kettle of fetishes, so it's hard for me to say discernibly so, like, oh well, that fetish, oh that's for weird, that's for fucking freaks. That guy likes looking at feet. But no. Well, when you look at insect waifus, a lot of themes I have seen is the vor theme, being eaten or consumed or enveloped. But that touches on another issue with the mantis waifus, and that's of course the predilection to devouring their mates. And it actually spurred a bit of interest on my part. I looked into it. On average, a female mantis is going to devour their mate 3 out of 8 times, roughly half half of the times that they, you know, engage in promiscuity, there's going to be some post-coitus cannibalism. But for me, that's still too high of a chance. I don't want any chance of having my face eaten, post lovemaking. But you know, you look at some guys, they say, well, shoot, 3 to 8 times, that's not too bad. I'll roll the dice with that. You know, that's not for me, but those people exist for sure. But for me, like I said, insect waifus, I think also when you look at them, there's a large variety. There's the moth girl, which I had at the start of the show. Welcome back, hello, hello. But I've seen, well, particularly in Japan, there's kind of like a bug fighting culture. Like, when you're a kid, what you do is you collect bugs, kind of like Pokemon, and make them fight one another. It sounds actually pretty cool. Makes me kind of wish I'd grown up in Japan to some extent. Being a kid sounds like fun in Japan, but not necessarily being an adult, given the suicide rate. But yeah, whereas with monster girls that are insects, yeah, there is a lot of variety and a lot of interesting ideas that don't necessarily get touched on. I think because people don't like bugs. It's about the gist of it. And there's one series in particular, a roach waifu. I forget what her name is called, but basically it's the trials and tribulations of a roach girl, and it's played straight insofar as the roach girl basically is everyone sees her as a regular roach. So whenever she makes an appearance in the world, she's stomped on, crushed, poisoned, and so forth. But she just wants to be a just noticed and loved. And it's actually a pretty cute series. Let me see if I can find a little picture of her. Oh, quick. Roach wife. There we go. I'll get that up here in a second. This is some live editing. Here we go. Oh, let me see if I can find her. Hold on. We'll get her in just a second. This is non-show prep. This is on the fly. See if I can find her now. There we go. Again, I don't quite remember the title, but it's definitely cool if you're into the cutesy style. If you're into roaches, and particularly like the roach's perspective on life, human life in particular, and how she tries to make her way in the world. I'm not sure how far they've gotten with that story. It's kind of like it's a very simple short panel format. There's like five to six panels per comic. It's definitely the more gag oriented kind of presentation. That's all I have. That's all I have for you, actually. This is what happens when I don't have another guy to shit post with. But like I said, tonight was kind of a little bit of a trial run, a little bit of a playing around. I was having some fun. Let me get rid of her. But it's actually more for me just to play around with some tools I haven't played with in a while to make sure everything still technically works. But if you enjoy me talking about monster girls, definitely leave a comment, leave a something or another, or don't. That's good too. Like I said, that's probably not for this channel. Like I said, this is probably gonna slip and slide into the miasma of the darkness of the interwebs. I may even hide it after the fact, but we'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching, I guess. Goodness. Take care, you degenerates.